Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Is This Thing On? How's it going, guys? It's your lazy and complacent host, Eva, Ivanovna Lynette, or human on the internet. Whatever you choose to call me. How's it going, y'all? I'm back. Sorry again that I went on a hiatus, like I say in all these podcast episodes. I don't mean to. It just kind of happens. But I will be trying to get myself on a schedule to record these so that I don't make up any more excuses. But I genuinely got very, very busy in the last month and a half or so. So, last episode, y'all, what were you talking about? About how I now have a therapist. Well, 2 months into therapy, I'm doing very, 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 very well. My mental health has gotten so much better, significantly. Um, I am such a stronger person mentally. And I never thought I would be saying that so early on into my therapy journey, but my therapist has really, that's literally her job, has literally allowed me to be able to express what I'm truly feeling and not feel ashamed for it. But I know what you're saying. Well, hello, Lynette, Eva. That's literally what you're paying her for. And I get it. You're right. That is. But I'm glad that she's able to see eye to eye with me. And I have an objective perspective to what I have been experiencing. Um, it's really helped a lot to kind of put into words what I've said. And it does help again that I have a background in psychology. Because if you didn't know this about me, I majored in psychology in college. I have a bachelor's of science in psychology. So, you can pick my brain here and there about psychological stuff. And I might know a thing or two. Might be a little rusty up in there, but know a thing or two. But anyways, I've been able to not detach myself so much from my feelings, which is something I think I brought up in the last episode, that my therapist said that I tend to detach myself a lot from my feelings. Um, and that I think I also mentioned this in the previous episode too, as well, is that I have a persona that she likes to call the professor, which is basically my very intellectual side that tries to wow and impress people. And in a slight turn of events, I haven't found myself slipping back into that persona per se. Haha, little wordplay there. Um, I have I've been very, very comfortable in just saying what's on my mind and not worrying too much about it. And I think that can happen when you are around good people in your life that let you be, for one, unapologetically yourself, and two, that let give you space to let vulnerability in. And for a long time, I was afraid to be vulnerable with my friends, with those people that I cared about. But I've entered a new season of my life, um, without giving away too much about what it's about, because I feel like if I say what it is, then people might get nosy. And this is the one part of my life I really, really, really would like to keep private, despite having an internet presence, and having this platform where I literally talk about everything and anything. But let's just say that my life has changed significantly for the better. I am very, 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 very happy. The happiest I've been in a long, long time. The most mentally sound I've been in a long, long, long time. And I don't mean that in like, oh, she lost all her marbles kind of thing. I mean, yes and no. Because it's okay to lose your marbles every now and then, I think it happens to the best of us. It happens to all of us. And frankly, if you say that you don't lose your marbles every now and then, are you truly a human? Because none of us are called to be perfect. And if we keep setting ourselves up to be perfect, we are setting ourselves up for failure. Because imperfection is part of the human experience. Um, but I'll say this. Oh man, how do I talk about this and tiptoe around it without actually mentioning the significant life change that has happened in the last month and a half that I've been gone from this podcast? How do I bring this up? Um, let's just say that never mind. You know what? No, I'm not going to try to bring it up because, like I said, I want to keep this as sacred and private as possible. So, for the sake of that, um, I won't be talking about it. Um, unless that person wants me to talk about it, then by all means, I'll give the green light and I can talk about it on here. But until they give me the green light, then I'm keeping it a secret. But I'm just incredibly grateful, incredibly happy for the life I have. And, I think about it, if this event, if my life hadn't changed, because my life, if I think about it, my life is not super different than what it was a month and a half ago, but I am definitely feeling like a new person in the sense that I feel more grounded. I feel more myself. I feel like I'm finally seeing things clearly and for what they are. And I'm not taking any crap from anyone anymore. Um, you know that saying in psychology, not in psych necessarily, but just the human psyche always wants what they can't have. Well, you know what? I'm gonna say this. That saying is very true. Very, very true, very, very applicable. And I'll say this much. Something very, very similar to that degree has happened to me lately. Um, and I guess this could be mentioned. Uh, and I'm not calling this person out at all. But here's the thing about entering a new season of your phase, um, and trying to move on from people, right? I often talk about dating and relationships a lot on this podcast. Um, I do quite a bit because it's just a hot topic, a hot interest of mine, and I think it's cool to talk about it, you know. Um, but it's so funny that as humans, we always tend to gravitate towards the things we can't have, the things that seem unattainable. Um, but it's so funny because, and ironic because the moment that things are very tangible and very like right there, like in your face all along, we don't want them. But the moment we add distance, the moment that such tangible thing is no longer there, that's when we choose to reach for it. Now, for legality purposes, um, as I always mention on here, I will not be mentioning names, but let's just say that there's been a scenario that happened to me personally where there's a person that I was friends with for a long, long time, and we were very close. And at some point in the friendship, a long time ago, a while ago, I had hoped, but this was a long time ago. My life is totally different now. Um, I had wanted this person to pursue me, and I was always hopeful that this person somehow felt the same way. So when this person didn't feel the way that I did a while ago, that I felt that way, I just started to realize that it's probably better to move on from things that aren't going to be fruitful in the long run. And what I mean by that is if you know that the thing you want is not tangible and accessible, and there seems to be like no indication that you're going to be able to get that thing, the most logical thing to do would probably be to move on, which is exactly what I did. I moved on from this situation, made peace with the fact that it never was going to happen, and just decided to, I took a big step and I decided that this year I was going to focus on being the best version of myself. And for me, that started when I decided to take a huge leap of faith and work on my mental health and get a therapist, which I have been seeing for the last 2 months. And I just want to say a huge thank you, huge shout out to my psychologist, um, my therapist. If she's listening to this by any chance, thank you. You've changed my life for the better. You really, really have. I enjoy our sessions. I enjoy the fact that you can see right through me and you know exactly what I'm going to say, and I'm able to be the person I've always wanted to be because of the tools you've given me in our sessions. So thank you so much for that. And guys, I can't stress enough how important it is to prioritize mental health, how important it is to invest in yourself. And by doing that, let me just say this. I think we need to get rid of the idea that investing in yourself, betting on yourself is selfish, because it's not. Because everything at the end of the day goes back to you. Um if we don't feel like we're living up to our full potential, it is no one else's responsibility but ours to figure out where that inadequacy is coming from. For me, my biggest inadequacy, is that the word? Inadequacy. I felt the most inadequate when I realized that my mental health was in the gutter. I felt like I couldn't be vulnerable. I couldn't be myself. I felt like the longer I prolonged these mental health issues, the longer I was going to struggle, which was true. Like, I had all the tools and the resources to start seeing someone, to help me with my mental health. I was just choosing not to. And when I finally just decided, what the heck, and not be prideful and not be ashamed and scared of getting the help, it was literally the most life-changing decision I could have made, the most important one. Okay, guys, and we're back. Sorry, took a little break, a little pause there. Anyways, as I was saying, investing in my mental health and having a therapist, having a psychologist, a professional, an objective opinion was probably the best choice I could have made in my life. Um, because of it, I'm so much healthier mentally, and by doing that, by getting a hold of my mental health and realizing that not everything is out of your control when it comes to mental health. There's some things that, obviously you can't control, like anxiety and depression, but at least having someone there that studied that, you know, really, really, really helped. Because sometimes we repress and suppress our own trauma because obviously we don't want to deal with it. But, you know, and it can be painful to bring it up in therapy, even though you have a professional there. Um, but I think it's essential and it's important. It's a huge part of the healing process to bring up traumatic stuff that happened to you. Um, because if we don't address it, if we don't bring it up, we're going to keep holding on to it, and we're ultimately going to resent ourselves, and we're going to resent the people that caused us to experience this trauma. And I'm not blaming anyone here. I really am not. I hope you guys don't think that I'm trying to blame someone here for my um, trauma that I've experienced. Um, However, I think it is important to address it. It is important to give it a name and a face, um, and be able to face it with, again, a psychologist, a therapist, someone from an objective point of view. That's literally their job. Um, and I understand there's a lot of people that can't afford therapy, can't afford to go and sit down for a session because, I mean, it is expensive. I'm not going to lie. Um, but if you can and you have the resources and the means to do so, highly, highly, highly recommend that you go see a therapist. Everybody at some point just needs to go see a therapist because it may be the best thing, um, for you. Um, I don't know. If I have kids, I feel like I'm going to encourage them to go to therapy. You know, I think it would be fun as a family. Um, and you don't even have to have any problems, you know, to necessarily go to therapy. I think that's like the common misconception is that you need to have like deep rooted issues to go to therapy. And that's not at all true. Um, I think everybody can benefit from therapy because we all have something we're struggling with. Um, it doesn't necessarily have to be like this huge problem in our lives, but it does help to go either way because then if there is a problem that does resurface in our lives, then we have a medium and a place and a person to talk to it about it. But if you can't, justify going to therapy, or maybe you're hesitant about it, I recommend going to someone that you trust, and venting to them about it. Having that person by your side that'll keep you accountable, that'll encourage you and motivate you to talk about the things that make us uncomfortable. I think that can also be such a helpful and wonderful thing um, in our lives. But going back to the point I made earlier about as humans going over things that are um, tangible versus is untangible a word? Or I'm trying to think. Going after things that are tangible and they're right in our grasp versus the things that are not. Okay, guys, I'm back. Sorry. I had to take a little break because I had to go to the bathroom. Anyways, we're back. To what I was saying. Yeah, having that thing that's very, very tangible right in front of you, and in the moment that it's not so tangible, you want to reach for it. And that kind of happened in my life uh, a little bit ago. And the thing about it is that a lot of the time, and if I'm repeating myself because I feel like I've said this in a previous episode, um, let me know. Um, but I think a lot of the time we are conditioned to chase things and go after them. And we're kind of taught to like go after people sometimes. Um, but I think it does quite the opposite. It'll push someone away to go after them. It'll stop that person from wanting to um, be closer to that person because they feel so accessible to them. Accessibility, that's the key word. I think when something is very, very close and it's always within your reach and it's very accessible, it no longer becomes valuable because it's so accessible. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned so far in my almost mid 20s, because I'll be 25 in about 2.5 weeks. But the biggest lesson I've learned is that be careful who you choose to make yourself accessible for. Because those people that you may be making yourself accessible for may not feel the same way that you do. And the biggest thing I think I've preached on here is setting healthy boundaries. And I think when things are getting a little out of control, or just in general, I think for the sake of any friendship or relationship to work, there has to be boundaries. If there is not a form of a boundary made, established, put into order, there's going to be murky waters in that relationship. There's going to be things that some people will cross, and when there's no boundaries, a lot of people will tend to test you and test your limits. And you don't want that because that's manipulative, that's unhealthy, that's dysfunctional, and it's toxic, and it's just not good overall to be in that place, you know. um so be very, very, very cautious of who you make yourself accessible to. And I've had to learn that the hard way, uh, by having people show me, not even with words, but with their actions, just how accessible I was being towards them, but them not being accessible to me. They made it known that I wasn't a priority in their life, that I wasn't even a um, recurring character. I was like a stand in, an extra in a movie, and they could pluck me from obscurity whenever it is they wanted. Don't be that person. Don't jump at every single opportunity and chance to be someone's extra in their life. Don't do that, because I guarantee you will feel so crappy about yourself. And it's not even your fault. It's not even your fault. The people that want you in their lives, they're gonna make it known 1,000%. They're gonna make it known, not always by verbally communicating, but by just how easy it will be for them to ask you to do something, ask you to make plans with them, hang out, just include you in things. Inclusion. I think that's the biggest factor that you need to look for when deciding how accessible to make yourself to someone. How often does that person think about including you in their life or including you in something without you kind of having to nudge them about it? If you find that you are often the one that has to do all the you're the one that has to pull the strings and get things done and make the plans and do the things that are necessary to get something in order, then I say you need to put a boundary there, because they can't pluck you from obscurity whenever they feel like it. They can't ask you for favors and ask you to do something for them when they're not even factoring you in. It's honestly disrespectful. Um, and you're disrespecting yourself by doing that. And the thing that I'm coming back to here is that I had someone in my life who was constantly doing that to me. And when that person finally wanted to factor me in a different way, and I finally put my foot down and said no, they took it very hard. They took it very hard. And I don't want to say it felt nice saying no to them, but it kind of did, because they kind of got a little taste of their own medicine. Um, and it's because I just finally decided to start doing my own thing, start being myself, start not caring about how people were going to perceive me. And I made that choice to do that. And that obviously made me a better person, made me grow as a person. And I think when this person started realizing that I didn't need them in my life to be complete, that's when they were like, oh no, I need to reel them back in. And the truth is, that will happen a lot. A lot of the times. The real test of how much you've grown as a person will be is, will you let those people back in? Will you let them um, will you let them in to your life or not? Because it's up to you to make that choice. In my scenario, I said no to them. Said no, good riddance. I don't need you in my life. Frankly, I don't want you in my life. All you did was bring dysfunctionality and chaos. And I was completely done with that. My life up to this point was very, very chaotic. I didn't need any more chaos in my life. You get to a point in your life where you just want stability. You want you will choose peace over anything else. And I've said this before, but I'll keep saying it again. Anything that disturbs you or robs you of your peace is not worth it. And this person was definitely doing that to me. a lot. And so when I finally put my foot down and said, no, you can't be in my life in this way, because I don't want you to be in my life this way. I don't want you in my life at all. Will it hurt saying that? Yeah, sometimes it will hurt. But by this point in my life, I kind of had already gotten over everything, because it didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter that that person hurt me, because I was already healing from it. I had moved on. I just simply wanted peace. And I wasn't going to let this person rob me of my peace. And that's what a lot of people will do, sadly, especially when it comes to relationships. Uh, you know, it's like people know when you're happy and you're finally moved on and you're doing so good. There's like this itch to scratch about the person that's doing well. You find out they're doing well, and all of a sudden, you're so invested, because it's like they had you at the palm of their hands. And the moment you became unreachable, out of their grasp, no longer tangible, that's suddenly the moment that they wanted you. And it should not be that way. You should not be an option. You should not be well, you're finally happy and doing well, and I want to be in your life again. It shouldn't take that amount of change for them to be like, I'm sorry, I treated you like crap. I regret it. And now I want you back into my life. It shouldn't take that much work. Really shouldn't. And it's okay to forgive that person, but it is good to move on from that and not have that permeating in your life. Because if I had let this person back into my life the way they wanted me to let them back into their lives, I think I would have backtracked on all my progress that I've made. I would have been, my progress would have derailed. And I've made so much progress. And I don't plan on stopping the growth in the progress. And by entertaining this person's idea of having me in their life just because they were missing me, or they were lonely, or they felt like I was lacking in their life, I'm not a feeling. I'm not a state of mind. I'm a person who has their own autonomy, can make their own decisions. And I'm a strong person. I was not going to let my weak mindedness reach out to this person, because I don't even want to say it's because they don't deserve it, because frankly, I don't deserve to have the growth that I currently am experiencing now. But it's a matter of respect. And I wasn't going to disrespect myself by going back to this clearly dysfunctional person. I wasn't going to do that. And there's going to be people in your life, there were ones in your life that are not going to like the fact that you've grown. Some of them may even be uncomfortable with it. But it's not up to you to make them feel, to make sure that they're okay. It's not up to you. If they can't be okay with this new version of you, this new growth that you're experiencing, hey, there's the door. Goodbye. good riddance, have a good life. And you're not being rude by doing that. You don't have to bring in people into your life that are going to derail you. I'm not going to be doing that. So I'm not going to go back to something expecting different results, because that's the definition of insanity, is going back to something and expecting different results. And if I decided to let this person back into my life, it was going to be quite insane of me to do that, considering all they put me through. I was not about to disrespect and derail myself like that, especially when I've come so far and I'm finally in a good, happy, and mental state of mind. Was not going to do that. Some people prey on the fact that others are happy. It hurts them to see the other person happy. It hurts them because, frankly, it's something that they themselves have not experienced. And that's really, really sad, to go through life and not be happy, or at least go through life and not be content. I think I had this as a question in the previous episode. So obviously I'm not going to ask it again, but I had asked, what is people's pursuit of happiness? Because I really do think it's an important question to ask yourself. And if you don't know the answer to that question, that's fine. Eventually, I think as you go through life, you'll find out what that is. But happiness is a choice. Love is a choice. It's a choice to wake up every day and decide to be productive and decide to make it the best day it can possibly be. The choice is, how will you do that? How will you make the choice to be happy, to feel loved, to move on with your life? And it'll take time. It'll take a lot of sacrificing old habits, old things that seem very, very familiar. But eventually, you'll shed your old self. You'll shed those old habits and you'll make new ones. It only takes humans about 2 weeks to formulate a new habit. So eventually, you'll come up with something else that will be a habit that will probably be a much better habit than the old one you had. But just because that person was a habit doesn't mean they were a good one. So don't go back to that person. Don't go back to that ex or that friend or that person that was like your emotional crutch. And don't do it. It will not bring you joy. It will not make you satisfied. And trust me, if you do decide to go back to that person, you'll only feel regret and misery. And I don't think you want either of those things. So don't do it. Do something else that's out of the norm for you. Do something different. Break yourself out of your comfort zone. Go meet new people. Go get a therapist. Just do something else. And eventually you'll cultivate some healthy habits. Go sit down and write stuff that you want to accomplish. And I feel like once you write it down, it'll be more tangible and easier to get it done. But yeah, we're creatures of habit. We're creatures of routine. But not everything in your life has to stay the same, including the people that once were in your life. And so I think when you choose to choose yourself, you will, that's how you'll see progress. Because it's not your job to be constantly choosing people or make people want to choose you. Because things should be effortless, things should be natural. It shouldn't take such a great leap, just such a great effort, and it shouldn't take a lot of hardships for people to see what they have that is right in front of them, which is that once they had that good thing, now it's gone. And that's sad. That's what has to happen sometimes for people to realize not to take other people for granted. That they have to see, oh, this person was always there for me. The moment that person decides to choose themselves, work on themselves, and kind of vanish from their lives, that's the moment that person realizes, wow, I lost the best possible thing I could have had. I lost the best friend I had. I lost the best relationship I had. I lost the best whatever that may be to them. But you just move on and move forward and don't look back. Don't go back and don't look back. You'll want to, but don't do it. Don't go back to something that was already hopeless and dead to begin with. Choose yourself. There's nothing selfish about it. At the end of the day, no one's going to look out for you more than you are for yourself. So you got to learn to stick up for yourself and vouch for yourself. And I think once you do that, people will respect you actually a lot more when you choose to put yourself first. Because they'll see, wow, this person takes time to improve themselves, takes time to grow as a person. This person really, really has a good head on their shoulders. This person is thoughtful and meticulous and thinks things through. And there's nothing wrong with being occasionally spontaneous. I mean, I'm a very spontaneous person and I'm very impulsive. But lately I've learned when it's okay to be impulsive and spontaneous and when it's not. And a good chunk of life, I hate to say it, you can't be impulsive or spontaneous about. But there will be moments where it's okay to be a little spontaneous, a little impulsive, and it's up to you to make that call. But when it comes to finding happiness and finding fulfillment and contentment in your life, I think some things can be very, very black and white. You'll know what things you need to eliminate and what things you need to keep. And that kind of sounds wrong. Sounds like you're making things options. But we all choose something at the end of the day. But again, no one else is going to choose you except for yourself. There will be people that reach for you and want to be in your life because they just love things about you. They love being around you. And eventually people will see that about you. If they stick around long enough, they'll see how valuable you are as a person. Or by the time they realize that, it may be too late and you may be gone from their life. And I don't mean that as in like, oh, you maybe died. You don't have to necessarily die. Well, sometimes it's sad, but it can be to that extreme that someone passes away and then they finally had this moment of clarity and epiphany where they're like, that person, wow, they made the biggest impact on my life. But again, it's not up to you to make people choose you. It's not up to you to please people. It's not up to you to make anyone happy. It's up to them. Everything is up to you and how you handle things. Well, everyone, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to give it a rating on Apple Podcasts. Follow the podcast on Instagram for more podcast updates. I will link that below. For mental health resources, I will also link that below. What else? I'm really, really, really happy at this point in my life. And I finally feel like I'm coming into myself, coming into my own. I'm finally the person I'm supposed to be in life. And I could not be happier about that. But yeah, I'll link everything below. As always, this podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcasts. If you'd like to be featured on the podcast, I do have a podcast email that you can check out. I will link that in the description below. What else? If you'd like to call the podcast, what else? If you want to be featured on the podcast as a guest, you want me to put you in as a guest, I have a podcast number, which I don't know if it still works, but I will leave it up below. And that number is 956-278-0720. 956-278-0720. You can call the podcast number, leave a voicemail or whatever. Or you can also email the podcast email below if you are a brand and you would like to work with me. The podcast email will be below in the description box for inquiries. Anyways, hope that you guys are all having a wonderful, beautiful morning, day, or night, wherever time of the day it is. And I pray that you go forth, prosper, and God bless. Bye-bye.